Mr. Peiris, if you look at the profitability of a Sri Lankan tea industry, uh, it just shows you that the financial viability can be questioned. How does the profitability model work in Rwanda on three elements? Number one is that in Sri Lanka, 60% of the cost goes to the workers in terms of their pay, and that price is not determined by the private sector, but it's agreed on a collective agreement with the government. So technically speaking, that you don't have any control on pricing. Your view?
Yeah, I think you're looking at only the tea plantations. Most of the companies, I think, have diversified and they have their own value addition arms also in Sri Lanka. So even though the price at the auction is quite low, I think there's a markup when it's value added, and those companies gain by that. Like what I said, the Rwanda focus is aware of this fact that the cost of labor has to be under control, and cost of labor has to be also kept at the minimum. That is why they are maintaining the below. It's around $2 at the moment compared to maybe $3 to $4 in Sri Lanka. Going in for the niche marketing, it's something which may be quite important. Value addition plus looking at some of the high valued products which are there. For example, Sri Lanka has the silver tip, Sri Lanka has the orthodox teas, Sri Lanka has those things. So cost is something which the model is a bit different in because we have a lot of resident labor who have to be looked after. But I don't think the smallholders, 60% or 60 or 70% smallholders who currently supply the industry, who produce, are affected by that. So it is only the plantation companies that are affected by that in Sri Lanka. So you need to really look at a model. I know that there are models which have come of giving out land and profit sharing and things which companies are doing in Sri Lanka. I have really not gone into in-depth study of those things, but having a smallholder model is something that would be very good, which is quite there here.
Okay, so as we have our students getting into the platform, let me warmly welcome all of you. And on behalf of APIT Sri Lanka, Asia Pacific Institute of Information Technology, Sri Lanka, we are honored to have been hosting this webinar today as well. We have been discussing a lot of important topics in time to time. And today as well, we do have another distinguished speaker with us. Let me allow official introduction to take place soon. But before that, let me warmly welcome all our students from Staffordshire University who are in the platform, and all the other counterpart members, staff, and dear colleagues who are joining us from different parts of the world today, especially from Sri Lanka to London to England to, I would say some of them are from Australia over here as well. So a warm welcome to all of you. And on top of that, I would warmly welcome all our corporate members who are in the platform as well. So with that welcome, let me invite our chairman of APIT Sri Lanka, Mr. Bandula Godage, to express his warm wishes before we start off the session. Dear Chairman, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Kaushali. Today, actually, when we are talking about APIT CEO's diary or MBA diary, it has now become a very popular feature in MBA student population, thanks to Dr. Rohith, the great initiative that he had created. Over 150 opinion leaders have expressed their views. Obviously, that was the very humble beginning. Now it is become a very popular event, and in spite of all busy schedule, today we have a very proud Sri Lankan who is joining from Kenya to share his experience with our student platform. And also is another important comment that I want to make on behalf of APIT management and all the board of directors and also the student population. This activity is basically well attracted by the foreign students as well as some diplomatic people also. Very frequently they are joining to attract these or get some information, this one. And again, on Dr. Rohanta's invitation, Rohith, you are joining from there. I'm sure that this will be very insightful for our student population because we never had that opportunity during our school time. You have given that, very graciously accepted our invitation just to share. And students also, I urge, whatever the questions that you have, get the maximum input of this gentleman like past in the events. And a bit known as for the quality education, but we are going one step beyond. We give the opportunity to interact with opinion leaders and in a cross-sectional way. Today we are talking about planting and entrepreneurship and joining from various things. So we are giving that real the daylight experience for our students to grab many things when you're becoming a MBA qualified person out from APIT. So once again, sir, Rohith, I take this opportunity to thank you for your greatest hospitality during my visit to Rwanda. So we are very proud of somebody who is running the show there in Rwanda, being a Sri Lankan. We also get a share of that proudness into my shoulders. And so thank you for that. Also, I'm mentioning, I wish you all the very best. And also thank you once again from the management of APIT. Greatly appreciate, Dr. Rohanta, your initiative. Thank you. Over to you, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and really appreciate for your presence. We have a very honored guest today, someone very dear to me. I've known him for so long, and I mean, a very fantastic product of Sri Lanka that we have exported now this time to Rwanda. A fellow of the National Institute of Plantation Management of Sri Lanka, counts for almost 40 years of experience in the agriculture. He's the alternate director for the Rwanda for the East African Tea Traders Association, board member, the Chris B Business Partners, member East African Advisory Committee, Global Livingstone Institute, committee member Rwanda Tea Association, member Tea Technical Committee, the Supply Chain Health Consortium, member of the Rwandan team for Peer Learning Summit in Rotterdam, Netherlands in 2018. And of course, he's the Honorary Consul for Sri Lanka in Rwanda. Some of the key achievements of Mr. Peiris is that he's been the commission for the first green tea factory in Rwanda, a project management for the first Orthodox tea factory in Rwanda, tailors of the Harrogate UK Supplier of the Year Award, pioneered the tea expansion project to support the circular economy of rural development Rwanda, and the first hybrid solar power project in the tea industry of Rwanda. He has been conferred the key awards of North American Tea Conference for Tea and Sustainability, a childhood development initiative with UNICEF, pioneered the digitalization project for the tea industry of Rwanda. Ladies and gentlemen, we are absolutely honored and privileged to have the Director General of the Sorwathe Limited Rwanda, the Honorary Consul for Sri Lanka in Rwanda, Mr. Rohith Peiris. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Rohanta, and thank you very much, Bandula. It's nice to see you all also, and it was nice to see you in Rwanda also, Bandula. And Rohanta, it's your time to come here as quickly as possible. Let me just start off with, my topic is mainly to see what's the difference of planting in Rwanda and planting in Sri Lanka is. And I came to Rwanda 15 years ago after around over 25 years of planting in Sri Lanka in various parts of the country. In fact, I was associated with Rohanta's father long years ago in 1982 onwards on estate in Pasara. And I came to Rwanda 15 years ago, and mainly it was to set up the Orthodox tea factory, which was one of the pioneering things in Rwanda and one of the first factories in Rwanda. So just to give you a brief background, first of all, of Rwanda, of those who may know or may not know. If you see the background of my screen here, you see that is the beauty of Rwanda. It's a beautiful country, landlocked, 1/3 the size of Sri Lanka. It's called the country of mountains. It's called Milcolin. because there are so many mountains in this country and also flatlands. And it's a very small country with a big heart. And if you can see, one of the key things they have done is they have really focused on zero plastics. And you cannot come into the country with carrying plastics. It's taken out at the airport and you're given a normal degradable bag which you can use it. So that's the big heart that this country has. And also it is very ambitious. It wants to be the Singapore of Asia, and it is driving its way through to achieve their targets. And I'm sure they will get there very soon. Rwanda has a population of about 13 million people, and it is more famous or more known for the genocide, the sad genocide which happened against the Tutsis in 1994. It is also famous for its silverback mountain gorillas, and which is one of their key income earners in this country. And there are a lot of tourists who come to see these things, which is a once in a lifetime thing, which many people like to do. You are taken and you spend 1 hour with the gorillas at a distance of about 4 to 5 meters, and then you're given the chance to see that. And Rwanda is doing an extremely good conservation project for the gorillas, and the population is actually growing in this country, and it's highly sought after. It's a highly sought after tourist attraction in this country. The main source of the economy is based on mainly on minerals, and of course tourism, which is wildlife, as well as they also are focusing on mice, and also the other tourism attractions that they have, like golf tourism and also tea tourism and many other things. It also depends on tea and coffee. Tea is one of the key drivers of the economy, although it is very small compared to Sri Lanka or Kenya. And but they do make a very high quality tea, and they don't want to lose that market. They always stop the auctions in Mombasa, and they get much better prices than most of the surrounding countries here. Getting on to the tea plantations in Rwanda, it's a comparatively young industry. It started only in 1952, compared to Sri Lanka, which has over 100 years of tea cultivation. And the drive is to increase the production as much as possible. Quantity-wise, it is still pretty low. They do about close to about 40 million kilos of tea per year, compared to around 250 to 300 million kilos of tea in Sri Lanka and about 500 million kilos of tea in Kenya. The soil is very fertile because it is volcanic soil and has a temperate climate, which makes it perfect for tea growing. And tea is grown in almost most of the part of the country except for the dry areas, and it's grown on the hillsides like in Sri Lanka, like the Honorary areas, and at about elevation of 1,900 to 2,500 is much more higher than in Sri Lanka. I think Honorary goes up to only about 6,000 feet, which is close to about 2,000 meters. But here the tea goes up to almost 2,500 meters. And another thing is, like, even though it is at a very cold climate, the yields are very high here because of the types of plants they are using in this country. It is also grown. It is something which is quite surprising here that the tea is also grown on well drained out marshy land, like if you take, for example, compare in Sri Lanka the paddy fields, which has water. So here the marshland has been drained out with huge drains in the centers, and tea is grown there. So the tea grown in these areas have very high production because the water level is very high, and it gives a much better production, going up to about 3,500 to 4,000 kilos of made tea per hectare, while Sri Lanka average, I think, is now below 2,000 at the moment. Also, as I mentioned earlier, Rwanda is very well known for its high quality tea, high quality and the flavor and also it's considered some of the best teas in the world. Of course, it is mainly what you see, the CTC type of tea, which is mainly Africa is famous for. And of course, Sri Lanka is more famous for the orthodox type of tea. Mostly all the teas are sold at the Mombasa auctions. Value addition is at a very low level in this country. Compared to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, I think, does almost 45 to 50% of value addition. Rwanda, I think, is mainly even still less than 1 to 2% still. The main reason being that this country is a landlocked country, and getting the teas to the ports, if it's taken to Mombasa port, it has to go through 3 countries, 1,600 kilometers. If it goes to Dar es Salaam port, it goes through 2 countries and around 1,200 kilometers. So that way, Sri Lanka is very lucky because you can get your tea to the port basically in half a day, even from the furthest estate in the country. There's also a small percentage of tea which is sold to the big tea packers of the world. Most of the big tea packers in the world are very active here. Unilever, Taylors of Harrogate, most of the European companies, the tea packers are very active here. And because value addition is less, they buy the tea. Most of the tea is actually sold from here. So the main difference what I see is in the planting here is that the tea factories in Rwanda are very large. They do about 3 million kilos of tea. Factory maybe sometimes even less than 1 million or even 500,000 kilos. Basically, a Rwandan tea factory is comparable to about 5 tea factories in Sri Lanka, and it's managed. So economies of scale is there. So because of that, it's much more cost friendly, much more better and cheaper to manufacture it here. Also, Rwanda has comparatively young plantations and good soil compared to most of the plantations in Sri Lanka, which is now over 100 years. The soil is degraded in some of the areas, and also it's the tea bushes are also old. Here, the average age is maybe around 60 to 70 years. Most of the factories, and there's a lot of new planting which is taking place. A lot of green fields are coming in, which is taking place at the moment. The biggest subject that Sri Lanka always discusses is the cost of labor, which is maybe around $3 to $4 per day per worker, while Rwanda it's still less than $2 per worker, and the productivity is much more higher than what is in Sri Lanka, and because of that, the industry is doing extremely well. Unfortunately, there's not much research in this country. Sri Lanka has a well-established research institute, and we have learned a lot of things from there, and most of those things are being implemented here. So research is very much low here. They totally depend on the research stations of the other tea-growing countries in East Africa, like Kenya or Malawi or Tanzania. Mostly, the model here is mainly a smallholder model, and the smallholders are shareholders of the factories. So they are very much interested to ensure that the factory does well, because they, at the end of the year, they get their dividends, and factory does well, they do better. Most of the plantation companies in Sri Lanka, I don't think they have that model. Maybe the smallholder factories do have that model, but here, because the smallholders are shareholders, they ensure that the factories always has good production and good quality of leaf. And also leaf hawking regulated by the government also to ensure that the factories run as much as possible, run to full capacity. Rwanda, like what I said, is a very highly developing country, and they are very much focused on ensuring that the export industries, not only tea, are very well supported. Whatever issue we have a place to go, and we have a place to sort out the issue. So export, they do not want the export industry to collapse, because they totally depend on that. And it was very, very obvious during the COVID season, where they really supported us. Basically, the estate workers were the first people to get the vaccines, so that the industry continues. I also already mentioned about the cost of transport, because Rwanda being a landlocked country, and the cost of transport is very much more higher, especially because it has to go to the borders, both incoming material as well as outgoing material. So what is it for a plant? As a plant, I got to say that I left Sri Lanka in 2008, and I really don't have extremely good insight of how the plantation companies are doing now. But I know that most of the companies are doing pretty well. They have diversified. They have gone into other industries, other things like leisure. They have gone into hydropower. In Rwanda, the diversification is very much less. So for a planter, for me or for any planter in Rwanda, it is the ease of work, which is most important. There is unstinted support by the government for export crops, which gives us, which supports us to do our work to the best of our ability. Then also there's a national policy on the raw material. I have heard of stories in Sri Lanka where the raw material which comes into the factories of very poor standard. But in Rwanda, it is like it is the government itself has maintained a minimum standard, which is 65% good leaf. For those who know about tea in the tea industry, who know about tea, the minimum standard is set. So every farmer, every worker, everyone knows that that is the standard of leaf that has to be supplied, and the leaf can be rejected if it is below the standard. So they ensure that the minimum standard leaf, so that the quality of the leaf is better. There are unions in this country, like in Sri Lanka, but the interference by the unions are minimal. They do productive support. They support us so that they ensure that the industry does not suffer. It's very important for that. One reason for that is there is no resident labor in Rwanda on the estates. If you see in Sri Lanka, the resident labor are some of the people who have to be looked after, even if they're not working, they have to be looked after. But here, because there is no resident labor, a lot of the matters are much more easier for us to do. Here, because we supply to big tea packers, there's a lot of support coming from the global tea buyers to us, especially insisting on international standards that are required. For example, the food safety standards, the rainforest standards, the regenerative agriculture standards. Now, everything is being insisted to us by other global tea buyers who really want the industry to sustain, because they always believe that sustainability is important for them too. Rwanda as a country is focusing a lot on digitization, and their policy currently is a cashless economy. So because of that again comes down to us on the estates, on the plantations, to ensure that we also do digitization here. A worker just gets the salary on the second, or the farmer gets the salary on the second or third through a mobile application. They even don't have to go to the bank. It just comes to the phone, and the mobile applications are very good, very efficient, and there are agents everywhere from whom they can go and take the money, as well as the savings have been much more to them. So the hassle of going to banks, traveling long distances to get their money is not there anymore. Like what I mentioned earlier, Rwanda bush management. I would say Sri Lanka, because of the research that is there, they emphasize a lot on tea bush management and soil management. Rwanda also does that, but they are blessed with a good soil, so they are still not too much worried about those things. But as time goes on, they also will have to come to those requirements. Unfortunately, Rwanda does not have value addition. There is some areas which they need to do, and also look at diversification from tea, because tea is the only crop that is here. Coffee is there, but coffee is dying down slowly here, but tea is one of the main crops here. So for a planter and as a CEO, I operate from the tea factory itself and the plantation itself. In Sri Lanka, I know most of the CEOs are based in Colombo, but here everything is like concentrated on the tea factory, and like you have hands-on operation and you have complete responsibility of what you do. you report to the board of directors. That is normally only, although there is in between, there is a communication which goes on. But the main board meetings are twice a year, and most of the board members are not based in the country. They are based overseas, and because of that, there's minimal interference, and you're free to do whatever you like, whatever you need to do, and whatever your vision is, and whatever your company's vision and your vision, you can easily implement those things. The structure is not hierarchical at all, and it's a very flat structure. It's just in between me, the person who is having hands-on here, and the board of directors. There's no one in between, and there is like basically you are hands-on here at the factory itself where the operations take place, and you report to your chairman, who is basically out of the not in the country even. So it's a very flat structure which is there, which I think it's different in Sri Lanka, where the estate managers have to report to someone in between, and then again to another one, someone in Colombo. So it's a bit of a different structure which happens there. So because of this, because you are given the freedom to do anything you want, as a CEO, as a planter responsible, you can establish practices. You have the direct opportunity to establish practices to improve quality, quantity, reduce poverty in the area, and also focus on gender equality. Whatever that is required can easily be done, because you're given the green light to go ahead with most of these things here. What has to be done, there's you do it, and you take the responsibility for it. You also have the direct through, because we work with almost 60 to 70% smallholders. We have the direct opportunity to ensure that the rural development goes on around the tea factory, which is something critical, and also which is something very well appreciated by the government of Rwanda, because when we support the communities around, they also their job becomes a bit more easier than for them having to do all these things. Plus also, most of the factories here have become like one-stop institutions, where direct global buyers can buy whatever types of tea they want directly from the factory. Currently, the trend is from the bush to the consumer, and now the buyers want the teas basically packed and sent direct to UK or direct to Germany as quickly as possible, so that the time in between, the time it's plucked and goes to the buyer, is reduced. So that is something which is happening here now. We have buyers coming to us and telling us to send the teas directly from Kigali to UK and to other countries, so that the time in between is very much less, and the tea is much more fresher than when it gets to the ultimate consumer. So that's it from me, and then I'm open to any questions. Once again, I would like to thank all the management of APIT for inviting me, and it has been a great honor to speak to you, and also to all the MBA students, or the students who are listening. And let me wish you all the best. I'm open for any discussion. If you need any assistance, you're most welcome to drop an email to me, and I will most certainly support you as much as possible. And I look forward to answering any questions that is required, and anything else you want, any clarifications. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rohith, and it was a fantastic summary of the two scenarios that we have. So a whole heap of questions have come in, but the first question, I'm going to ask you the first question that has come in, which is very interesting. Mr. Peiris, you are the first agricultural expert that we have heard that has been exported out of Sri Lanka. And you said that from 2008, you have been working overseas. So do you like Sri Lanka or Rwanda?
I don't think I'm the first agricultural expert who has been exported. There are quite a few more who have gone out to the tea industry and to various countries in Africa. Well, I do like Sri Lanka. That is my base, and I always do like Sri Lanka. Of course, this opportunity came up, and in fact, I came here for 2 years, but I've been here for 15 years. And so you know that I do like Rwanda also. It's very much more easier working here from what I would see and I would not have been able to reach the heights that I have reached if I was in Sri Lanka, because it opens up. I encourage anyone who wants, you should have a stint overseas. You get a completely different perception of what international management or international business management or even a tea management is. So most of the things I have learned a lot after coming here. So it's everyone must get a chance of try to get a chance to work overseas even for some short stints.
I'm now going to the hard, tough questions, Rohith. The first question coming out is that from the experience you have seen in Rwanda, the question that has been asked is, if you were to come now to Sri Lanka, what's the first thing you will do?
Of course, I like what I mentioned. It's quite a tough question. I exactly don't know the correct insights of the plantation companies in Sri Lanka at the moment, but something which need to be studied and to see how it is doing well. Maybe I will not say that Sri Lanka tea industry is bad. Sri Lanka tea industry has gone up a lot, especially because of value addition and value addition. I would say the most important thing is to ensure that quality and sustainability of the industry. We should not take any short-term decisions. For example, one of those decisions was the organic manure, and I know the industry suffered quite a lot because of that. So those are things which I would really focus on. Sustainability. Tea is not a short-term business. Tea is a cyclic business. Some years you make a lot of money. Some years you don't make any money at all. It's a cyclic business, so it goes like that. So what I would focus mainly is on to ensure sustainability of the industry, and maybe you have to do in-depth study and see how it works out.
Very interesting question coming up. Mr. Peiris, if you look at the profitability of a Sri Lankan tea industry, it just shows you that the financial viability can be questioned. How does the profitability model work in Rwanda on three elements? Number one is that in Sri Lanka, 60% of the cost goes to the workers in terms of their pay, and that price is not determined by the private sector, but it's agreed on a collective agreement with the government. So technically speaking, that you don't have any control on pricing. Your view?
Yeah, I think you're looking at only the tea plantations. Most of the companies, I think, have diversified and they have their own value addition arms also in Sri Lanka. So even though the price at the auction is quite low, I think there's a markup when it's value added, and those companies gain by that. Like what I said, the Rwanda focus is aware of this fact that the cost of labor has to be under control, and cost of labor has to be also kept at the minimum. That is why they are maintaining the below. It's around $2 at the moment compared to maybe $3 to $4 in Sri Lanka. Going in for the niche marketing, it's something which may be quite important. Value addition plus looking at some of the high valued products which are there. For example, Sri Lanka has the silver tip, Sri Lanka has the orthodox teas, Sri Lanka has those things. So cost is something which the model is a bit different because we have a lot of resident labor who have to be looked after. But I don't think the smallholders, 60% or 60 or 70% smallholders who currently supply the industry, who produce, are affected by that. So it is only the plantation companies that are affected by that in Sri Lanka. So you need to really look at a model. I know that there are models which have come of giving out land and profit sharing and things which companies are doing in Sri Lanka. I have really not gone into in-depth study of those things, but having a smallholder model is something would be very good, which is quite there here.
You're spot on, Rohith. I mean, I was in the 10-man committee appointed by His Excellency the President to study the regional plantation companies model in 2010-11, and what came out very strongly was that the smallholder model is one way that the cost can be managed. You're spot on. This very interesting question coming up is the question is that we are in the age groups of 25 and 35, and we are studying, expecting that Sri Lanka will be looking at greener pastures for us to continue our career. What is your honest advice to us as youngsters studying for the master's program in mid-career?
Yeah, my advice is in Sri Lanka, the curriculums and the studies are pretty good. It is well sought after all over the world. I am here in Rwanda because of what I have learned in Sri Lanka. So the base has to be always Sri Lanka, and the experience also is quite good in Sri Lanka if in whatever industry that is. But my advice is you should have even a short stint out of the country to get that. The international experience is important. Everyone may not be able to get it, but that international experience opens your eyes to many things, and your perception of the world changes. And it just completely changes. So do your initial studies there, get some experience, move out, and come back. So that's how we should move. We should do. And hopefully the government also will give opportunities for people who come back, and the companies will give opportunities for people who come back. Otherwise, they just get frustrated when they come back.
Rohith, very interesting question coming up. You said that the value addition, Mr. Peiris, you said that the value addition is not very strong in Rwanda when it comes to tea. In Sri Lanka, it's about maybe 40 to 50%, which varies from 40 to 50% the value addition in the branded products. While on the other hand, you have about 40% that goes on a bulk basis, which has low margins. The question I'm asking is, why isn't Rwanda getting into brand marketing?
Rwanda is trying their best to do that. Like what I said, it's it's being a landlocked country, getting it to the ports, exporting is a very high cost. So that's one reason which, and also, as you know, it's very difficult to break into markets. Dilma is a good example, which has gone into the international market in Sri Lanka, internationally from Sri Lanka. So that is one of the most sought after stories there. And here, the main reason is one thing is they are finding it difficult to get into the big brands, big supermarkets by themselves. So you need a huge marketing budget to do that. And remember, you're competing with some of the big guys around, like Unilevers or Taylors of Harrogate, some of the big guys around in the world. So Rwanda is a bit cautious in that. They are trying their best to do it. To keep their cost down is also pretty tough because they have to get it to the port to export it. Then also remember the printing industry is not extremely well developed also in this country. So most of the things have to be imported back into the country. So all that is costing the country a lot. So that's why they are still trying their best to get there, but they have not been able to do it still.
Oh, whole heap of questions, right? I'm just picking up the ones, I'm just clubbing some of them together. The question is that, do you think the RPC model, or the first privatized asset of the government is the tea industry? What is your view of whether it has achieved its objective, and whether we should look at the privatization of state assets, which is right now being pursued by the government. Interesting question.
What's the first of the question?
Whether
RPC model with its
the first privatized asset of the government was the tea plantations, which happened in 1990 or no 1992, 1996.
92, yes.
And so they just want to know whether, in your view, whether it has worked, and whether it should be followed in terms of the rest of the industries, others.
I would say it has worked because of the reason that companies have looked at diversification, they have looked at value addition, they have looked at various aspects of using the land, which is productively. I will not say that all the companies have done that, but maybe some of the companies have moved forward in that, and then they have done that. And especially the value addition aspect would have gone is much higher than most of the other countries. And also, like, for example, the Orthodox tea manufacture, which is highly sought after in the world, and especially in many countries, they always look up to us as Sri Lankans for everything they do. And also the RPC model is working well. Maybe you may have to see how you can reduce the layers sometimes in the RPC models. That's what I think should be done, where the manager of a estate is held more responsible, more accountable, and more responsible for everything that they do, and given a chance to do better, to come up with his or her vision. So that's it has worked. It would have been a burden to the government if it had not been there. And even going forward with this new talk of the other assets being privatized, it has to be looked at. The government should come out of, my opinion is, the government should come out of managing private assets and private institutions. They should come out of it, and it should be given to the private sector, and the private sector will most certainly do better and think better and do well. And I know that plantation companies have done that. I know that companies are going into leisure, companies are going into various other things, hydropower, diversification into other crops, and using the land much better.
Thank you, Rohith. One last question. Do you feel that Sri Lanka should be rebranded as Ceylon, because Ceylon tea is drunk by almost 60 million, or 60 million cups are drunk every day? Is there any merit of Ceylon tea and ultimately Sri Lanka to be branded as Ceylon, given that the brand Sri Lanka has so many negative connotations?
The Ceylon tea is known all over the world, and Ceylon tea has to remain. That has to remain continuously. There's no two words about it. I don't think anyone will know what Sri Lanka tea is, except for very few people. As far as branding Sri Lanka as Ceylon, that is possibly more of a political thing, or what, but I don't know exactly how. That's the question that he's asking. But Ceylon tea is important. Ceylon tourism, Ceylon tea is important. Ceylon is known for its cinnamon. Ceylon is known for its tea. Ceylon is known for its rubber. Ceylon is known for many things. Our irrigation systems. When you come out of the country, and when people talk about Sri Lanka, and people who have visited Sri Lanka, they come up with some amazing stories of what they have seen about the Ceylon food, Ceylon crab, Ceylon prawns. So basically, Ceylon has to be there, and Ceylon cinnamon is very, very popular everywhere in the world. So Ceylon is very important. I think Ceylon is very important, especially for tea.
Sorry, Rohith, I'm going to pick up one more question. The question is about the mountain gorillas, and a very interesting question. He's saying that one of the case studies in the world for sustainable tourism on the carrying capacity studies that have been done is the Rwandan gorilla climb, and apparently only 150 people are allowed per day. The question is that is Rwanda built totally on the gorilla story, or are there any other aspects that Rwandan tourism is built on?
Okay, Rwanda, the gorilla tourism is extremely good, very well managed, and the conservation is extremely good. It is 110 permits a day, not 150, and it's a permit is $1,500. And if you are going to in one of those hotels around that, it'll be another 1,000 or 1,500 full board for just to see the gorilla for 1 hour. So that's how the model that they work around with. And because they plow back most of the money that they get back into conservation, the population is growing. I think the latest census was around 600 odd gorillas. To give you a background, if I have time, the gorillas live in 3 countries. It's in the Virunga mountain range, which goes into Congo, Uganda, and Rwanda. And most of the gorillas are coming towards Rwanda because of the conservation things. You can go and see it in Congo, which is much cheaper. You can also go and see it in Uganda, which is also much cheaper. But Rwanda is high cost, but people are coming here because of the conservation efforts and how it is managed. In addition to gorilla tourism, you also have the Nyungwe forest, which is a forest in this country, which has about 13 varieties of primates, including the chimpanzee, which is something also you can go and see. And also you have the Akagera Park, which has the big 5. The lions were reintroduced in 2014. They brought in some 6 or 7 lions, and now the lion population is almost 30. They also reintroduced the rhinos in the Akagera Park. So now they have the big 5 also in Rwanda. So it's a complete package that they give for all these 3 things. You can see the big 5, you can see the primates, the chimpanzees, and also you can see the gorillas. All 3 are available here. In addition to that, there are other places which you can visit here.
So the question is that the only 3, or do they also market Rwanda tea?
They do market Rwanda tea. They do market Rwanda coffee. They do market mice, meetings, tourism for meetings. There are a lot of meetings coming. That is why your friend is coming here. That's something the Commonwealth was here last year. So they do have those things. They also are now currently building a golf. They have 1 golf course, but they want to have 3 golf courses within a very short range where they can focus on golf tourism. So they have various ambitious projects lined up. Currently, it is the gorillas and the wildlife, and you have the conference tourism which is going on, plus the tea and the coffee and the minerals which have been extracted.
Thank you very much, Rohith. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorary Consul of Sri Lanka to Rwanda, and a fantastic expert on tea, which really gives us a view about how Sri Lanka works and how Rwanda works on this fantastic industry. Ruth, over to you.
Good evening, Mr. Rohith, and thank you once again for your valuable time that you've spent here with us, your experience and the knowledge that you've shared with us in relation to the work that you've done in terms of tea plantation, both here and in Rwanda, will be valuable to our students and our audience in general. And as usual, at the end of an MBA Diary session, we would like to remind our industry partners that at APET, we have an intensive internship program. So if you do have any opportunities at your company, please do share it with us. Right. I'd like to thank our audience and the IT team for the technical support extended during the session, and everybody, including students, alumni, and industry partners and well-wishers. So till we meet again at the next MBA Diary session, I'd like to wish everyone a good day, a good evening, and a good night from wherever you're joining. Take care.